Irit Shallor, Judaism, is it a complicated religion?
Yes, I think it is a complicated religion. I think what complicates it is the fact that we're living in a Christian country and Christian mostly. Obviously, there are lots of other minorities and ethnic minorities, but I think for Christians, religion is very much bound up with what they believe, whereas Judaism, for us, is very much bound up with how we behave, how we live our lives. So we don't tend to talk much about belief, and we don't have a dogma or a doctrine as such. We have one central tenet of faith, which all Jews accept, and that is that there is only one God. Whether they believe in it or not is neither here nor there, but they accept it as the central tenet of faith in Judaism. But apart from that, we don't talk about things that we believe, because Judaism is made up of loads and loads of commandments, and they're mostly about how we live our life. So, in a way, I would define it as a social construct, which means that we don't need to talk about what we believe, and that means that different people believe different things, and that's perfectly acceptable.
So how do you get that message over, say to young children making their way in Judaism, in that way, how do you get that point across?
Well, when we, for instance, we've got young children who come here to our Hebrew classes on a Saturday morning. When we talk to them, we try to teach them how Judaism requires them to behave. And, for example, we're great believers in study. We're great believers in giving charity. We're great believers in human rights. We're great believers in ecology, things like that. And the way I see it, and I think the way most of certainly my rabbinic colleagues, but also in history, the way people saw it was that through doing the right thing comes the right sort of faith. However, the right sort of faith is never properly defined. Thank goodness, which means that we can all have our own way of believing.
So can I ask you, how did you become a rabbi?
Well, that was very interesting because I moved to the south of England. I joined a Jewish community, and because I was born in Israel, and I come obviously from a Jewish family and learned all the stuff in Israel, including the Hebrew, and members of my community said, you come from Israel, can you read from a Torah scroll? I said, yes. Can you lead a service? I said, I think so. And I was roped in, and then at some point I decided that I really want to study more about it and learn why I'm doing all the things that I'm doing rather than just doing them. And at the time I was made redundant from my university, so it was a golden opportunity, and I went to study.
You say university, were you an academic?
Yes.
Yes. Has that helped you? Is there a connection between academia and
Yes.
Judaism?
I mean, the fact that, first of all, people who come to do rabbinic studies, certainly in London, because I studied at Leo Baeck College in London, we're all expected to come in with degrees. Any degree course, but, an academic degree. So it helps you focus the mind, because a lot of the study is academic. Not all of it, because we also had sessions on pastoral care and human psychology, very briefly. I didn't go into enough depth, but things like that. But a lot of it was very academic, and certainly if you study something like the Talmud, which it's got very logical intricacies, and people argue with each other and so on. It helps having some sort of an academic background.
You often hear of people converting to Judaism. Do people leave the faith as well?
Probably. I don't know enough about. I can think maybe of one or two members over the years, but I'm sure that people do occasionally.
And the world, we'll be careful where we veer into this subject of politics. Is it hard to stay away? You know, I guess I wouldn't, if I'm interviewing somebody from the Methodist Church, or interviewing somebody probably from one of the Church of England, I probably wouldn't ask this question about politics. But is it hard for you to stay away from politics, or do you have to compartmentalise that at all?
Well, I think that as a rabbi in the synagogue, I ought not to be too overtly political. I think it's not good. I think I shouldn't be using my rabbinic position to influence people in their politics one way or another. Obviously, like most people, I have a political view, and no doubt some of it comes across occasionally, but I do try not to make it too obvious. But for instance, one of the hot issues at the moment is the ecology, and being political or not, I can always talk about ecology because we've got scientific proof. So I'm not talking about speculation, I'm talking about something that scientists agree on, so I can talk about that. And beside whatever political stand I take, I believe that it is our duty as human beings to make the world a better place. We call that repairing the world. And I talk about reparation of the world very often. My community sort of start grinning when I start talking about it, because they know that that's what I'm going to say. And I believe that it is one of our main tasks as human beings on this earth.
But your personality, the way you express your beliefs, is that become part of the synagogue? Is that an imprint you have here? You know what I mean?
I think not. I think I try not to talk about my personal belief because I don't want to influence the way other people believe. And I think you see, because Judaism enables us to have all sorts of different beliefs, I don't want to influence them to change or to see things differently than they think is the right way for them. I also, because I came from Israel, I mean, I've been in England now for nearly 40 years, but the imprint of my youth in Israel is still there. And one of the things that we find in Israel are a lot of Jewish people who see themselves as completely secular, and that has no doubt influenced me as well. So, you know, I don't want my views to force themselves on other people, and I really value the way that they see things. But I must say that, I mean, we've got lots of study sessions for children and of course for adults. We never talk about belief, which is interesting. We talk about how we do things but we don't usually talk about beliefs. And even with my rabbinic colleagues, we don't talk about belief.
What about amongst the other faiths in the town of Harlow? Do you all meet at all? Are you close? And if not, could you be closer?
Yes, we do meet. I think we are relatively close. We could always be closer. There can always be more work, but I think we're doing a lot of work in Harlow, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud to be contributing to that, and in various ways. And at the moment, what we do is we have lots of events in Harlow. Well, not lots, but a few events where we get together the interfaith community, and we invite people from different faiths to meet together and so on. What I would really love to do is to create some study sessions that are on an interfaith basis, where people come from different faiths to study together and to talk about a topic. We used to do that with the CCJ, but this has somehow sort of fallen apart. There is no CCJ group in Harlow at the moment to speak of. And I did that a couple of times in Bishop Stortford, for example, when I was still living there. And for instance, we had one study day which was about Joseph, and we talked about how the three Abrahamic faiths see Joseph. and things like that. And I would really like to do that here too, but so far I haven't succeeded.
And do you do outreach work? Do you go to schools? Have you ever had an opportunity to go to other organisations? And what do you get out of that? I
go into schools an awful lot, and I think it's important. And I'm hoping that what the children get out of it is that, they become more tolerant, they understand who Jewish people are, and they recognise them as being just like them, which is very important because discrimination comes always from thinking about the other. What do I get out of it? I suppose for me it is part of this idea, this concept of repairing the world. I believe that when I go into a school, that I'm helping the children see the world differently, and I'm helping combat discrimination in some measure and so on. And I believe that it's important. I believe that work that I'm doing is important work. So I suppose that's what I get out of it.